Jade Blair here, your worker online and in person. And let me tell you, the first time a client came in, dropped his Dax, and there was like a big pus, partially scabbed red boil thing right on his shaft, I pretty much ran out of the room. I know, terrible, but I was very new to the industry. I'm a lot older, a lot wiser, and I would never ever do that again. But whether you're like a spicy worker like me, or you're just, with your girlfriend or boyfriend, you're a client of spicy workers, or you have one night stands, it's a really good idea to have a think about what you would actually do, what that conversation would look like if your partner had something going on down there. Because when we get scared, a lot of us freeze or run like I did, and it's not nice. First of all, you need to be able to identify an STI or a potential safety hazard, because it's not only STIs that can be a risk, right? Broken skin can also be a risk. They could be blood, other fluids, or you could get your fluids in them. So even if it's chafing or razor rash, you still need to be a little bit careful if there's a possibility that that skin could open. But you're gonna wanna first look up all the different types of STIs that are most common in your area. It does change country to country. And you're also gonna wanna look up what they look like on the specific genitalia or genitalias that you're interested in. And you're gonna wanna look up mild, moderate, and extreme cases. I guarantee if you put in HPV on female genitalia, you are going to get the most disgusting, horrific image you could imagine, because that's what gets the clicks, right? That's shocking. So of course it's going to get the most views, so it's going to be at the top of the search results. But it's very unlikely someone would actually be intimate with that, because I'd imagine that would hurt quite a lot and you wouldn't want someone touching it. So if there's going to be anything, it's probably going to be quite mild, and you need to know how to pick up those symptoms, because it can be very hard to tell if it's razor rash or an STI. The other thing to think about is what these STIs look like on different skin tones. So people like me who are ridiculously white tend to go really, really red if they're injured in any way. Where people with very, very dark skin, they might go red. Their skin might go darker. It might go slightly lighter. It might go kind of like a yellowy tinge. There's lots of variations depending on a lot of different things. You've done your research, you're in the intimacy setting, and something's going on down there. Here's what I do. First of all, I'm going to assess the situation. I want to make sure that I'm safe. This might not be a concern for everyone, but I don't always know my clients very well, and I do not want to be trapped alone in a room with a man who is very angry and like 3 times my size. So I'm going to make sure that I have access to the exits, they're not blocking them. I'm going to have a look around and see if there are anything I can use as like a makeshift weapon if I need to, like a lamp. I'm going to see if there's any ways I can call for help, whether that be a phone, a friend in the other room, or even just yelling to the neighbors. I'm also going to try and find a way to make my partner as comfortable as possible, because you don't want to be giving someone really awkward, embarrassing, bad news when they already feel vulnerable. So say they're naked, I might just grab the blanket at the end of the bed and pull it up over both of us. You don't want to like make it like, ew, I don't want to look at you. More just very natural, kind of covering them up. This is especially important if they're naked and you're not, because you can feel very vulnerable if you're the only one naked. Same with our body positions. I'm going to make sure that they don't feel claustrophobic. So if I'm standing up and they're sitting down, I'm going to move around and sit down next to them. Not super far away to look like I'm disgusted with them, but not too close up to make them feel caged in. Same if I'm leaning over them, I might get up and get off them, so they have a bit of space to move around and breathe. Now that that's done, we have to actually tell them. Well, I can tell you what not to do. Don't be disgusted. Look, STIs, they're pretty normal. Most people get them at some point in their life. Like 1 in 3 people have HPV. It is very, very normal, okay? And these days it's mostly treatable, so you don't need to worry too much. It doesn't make them a bad person. They're not dirty. It's just a thing. We get sick, we're human, that's what we do. So we don't want them to feel bad. So I'm not gonna act disgusted, I'm not gonna act shocked, I'm not gonna act scared. I'm gonna be calm, I'm going to smile, not ridiculously, not like, but just how I am today. I'm gonna keep my voice light and casual, and I'm gonna keep my body language quite open. So I'm not going to cross my arms or do any of these things. I'm stop playing with my hair, looking away, I'm gonna look them in the eye. I don't want to close myself off. Just casual, comfortable, open. Like it doesn't bother me, because it doesn't. Here is what I'd say. Hey John, I just noticed that you have a little bump down there. I'm really sorry, but we can't go ahead with what we planned because I'm just a little bit worried that, maybe it could be something that's contagious, or even if it's not, once we start having a bit of fun with the friction of our bodies, it could like split your skin at that bump because it looks a little bit like inflamed and sore. And if your skin split open, my fluids could get in, which is a risk to you. And also it's a workplace health and safety risk to me. Pause. Let's have a quick chat about what we just did. So I use their name. This is great. This is going to make them feel a lot more personable, a lot more cared about, not like they're just like a piece of meat. I'm also going to just say, oh, I noticed a little bump, a little rash. I'm not going to freak them out with the extent of it. I'm not going to point and be like, look at this. It's all over here. I'm just going to be, oh, this little thing. Even if it's not, even if it's quite bad, at this point, I'm just gonna say, oh, I've noticed you've got a little bit of redness down here, a little bit of broken skin, a few scabs here. Because I don't want them to panic. Panicking is never good. Next thing I'm gonna do is actively explain what we can't do, which is be intimate or do what we planned and why. I know that sounds really silly because of course it's kind of obvious why we wouldn't be going ahead, but when people get nervous, their brains stop, remember? So we're going to explain why. And when I'm explaining it, I'm going to make it about them and their safety a lot more than I make it about me. Because really what I'm concerned about is getting sick. Okay, but if I'm sitting here and going, I might get sick and then I won't be able to work and then I'm gonna have this thing and I'm gonna have to go get tested and me. It makes it sound like I don't care about them and like I'm accusing them of being dirty or giving me this sickness or just being gross. I don't know, I'm sure they'll come up with lots of things in their head. We all do when we're uncomfortable and embarrassed and vulnerable. Instead, I'm gonna make it about them, about their safety. The other thing I'm going to do, particularly if it's a very mild case of something or I'm not even sure if it is something like an STI, I'm going to explain that even if it isn't an STI, there is still a risk. A lot of people don't realize this. They just think it's STI or go ahead. But really, you need to be looking out for anything that could be contagious, whether that be nits or conjunctivitis or cold or a flu or something like an open wound. Even if it's not an STI, it's still a safety hazard because it could leak blood, it could leak other fluids that could get on you and then give you all sorts of things. So I'm going to explain like, hey, look, even if it isn't something, there is the risk because that skin's already quite irritated, it could break. Now, of course, some people don't care at all about their health, which is terrifying to me, and so they'll just go, oh, well, whatever. So that's why I always tack on to the end, it's a workplace health and safety measure for me. Now, of course, you probably won't say workplace if it's not a workplace. And where I am, what I do is legal. So workplace health and safety is a kind of term we obviously don't use very often, but we do use. So it wouldn't be super strange. If you're in somewhere where maybe it's illegal, you might find the guy turn around and go like, oh my God, you're a whore. What do you mean workplace health and safety? You're a whore. Which is disgusting, but unfortunately that's how a lot of people think. The reason I say workplace health and safety is to remind them that this is a professional service. I am a professional and they need to treat me as such. Okay, but if you're just being intimate with someone, you might just say, also, it's a risk for my health and safety. Another thing you can follow that with is, you're such a sweet guy. You wouldn't want that to happen, or you're such a sweet lady. You wouldn't want to put me at risk, would you? No one's going to say, no, I'm an awful person. Well, some probably would. Most won't. So that's another way you can kind of go along to get them to agree to stopping the intimacy without them getting mad. Before they really have much to say, I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is what will we do next? Because I don't want them to sit there and have really long awkward pauses. I don't want them to come up with a bunch of excuses. And if they start to say, okay, here's what we can do, John. I could maybe give you like a hand job with a glove on, or a massage, or we can sit here and chat, but we can't have that skin to skin contact because that is still a risk. Or I'm happy to refund you if you'd like to end the booking now. Now, of course, if you are a spicy worker, it's entirely up to you whether you would like to refund the client or not. Sometimes you do have to make the decision just to refund them to get them away from you because you don't want to have the argument. Like I said, it's scary being alone with a man that's like 3 times the size of you and angry. But you're not obligated to, particularly if you've gotten quite far through the booking. But if you're not going to give them an alternative, something like a hand job with a glove, which would be much safer, I would give them a refund. At this point, every single time that this has happened, the guy has been so embarrassed. I've never encountered violence or anger, just they freak out. And they're like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But there is one more thing we need to say. I've got to get tested. Now, I can't diagnose anyone, and unless you're a doctor, you can't, and to be honest, you probably can't without tests anyway. So it's really important that we're not being like, that's HPV, that's chlamydia. We can't diagnose. We could say, look, it could be these things, it could be nothing. But it's really important that you go get a test before you are intimate with someone again. What I'm not going to do is freak them out and tell them a heap of horror stories, but I am going to reinforce a few times to get tested. Oh, it would be really good just for your peace of mind. You seem a little bit freaked out and I don't blame you, but like just for your peace of mind, so you know everything's good. And you know what? It's really great to get a test like once a year, twice a year if you're really active anyway. So like you're probably just due for one. I just go, it's super easy. Then I usually have a chat about my last experience getting tested, about how you can do all the swabs yourself usually these days. This is really great as well if you know a place that's close by, that's free and that's judgment free as well for them to go to. You can recommend that. If they have decided to leave and they don't want to continue with an ultimate intimacy thing, this is a really great time to be like, and as soon as it clears up, I'd love to see you again. And as I'm saying these last few words, I'm going to get up and I'm going to start kind of making a move to get ready. So that might be getting dressed, opening the door for them, picking up their things and picking up their things and giving it to them. And they'll kind of get the non-verbal hint that it's time to go. We don't need to discuss this anymore. Makes it a lot less awkward because then you're not like, would you like to go now? You've kind of eased the transition, and it's best if you are going to get up and start doing these getting ready to leave movements, do it while you're speaking. If you're doing it while they're talking, it's going to make you look like you're not listening to them. So that's why it's really important that you do it while you're speaking. So ultimately, I'll be honest, I don't really let them talk very much, other than deciding whether they would like to continue or with like an alternate service, or whether they would like to leave. But you know, it is really important. Keep smiling, keep that body language going. If you're not comfortable seeing someone again, just be like, it's so cool to meet you though. Like, you seem like such a great person, such a great guy. Have a great rest of your day and really mean it. Yeah, do you have any other tips on how to have this super awkward conversation? Because honestly, I'll take any advice. Thankfully, this has only ever happened to me about 3 or 4 times, and never as an independent worker. It's only ever happened to me at an establishment, at a brothel, where I've had other workers around for help. But this is one of the best ways I've found to deal with this situation and to really control it and make it as smooth and less awkward for the client as possible. Anyway, till next time.